Andreas is called Andreas Cleve and is actually a fellow Dane like myself. Andreas, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
We have you coming up for the EUVC Summit on the 22nd of April, but there's so much coming out from the team at Corti, so we had to do this now. Could you just lay out a bit what you're doing at Corti and just how you're firing on all cylinders?
Yeah, so we're building a frontier vertical AI lab. So think of the big AI labs, but this is a vertical one. We're solely focused on one vertical, which is healthcare and life science. And the basic idea we've been researching on for quite a lot of years and then building on for even more is there are certain markets where scaling laws are great, but they'll be met by a wall of domain laws. And there are a lot of domain laws in healthcare. So think compliance, medical device regulation, think error rates that are extremely low, and a risk profile that is very, very different from most markets. So we believe in a domain space like that with a lot of domain laws, you need something that is built different, and that's what we're trying to do at Corti.
And that approach has turned out to work quite well because you've been beating OpenAI on their own benchmarks. Talk a bit about that.
Yeah, that there's a lot coming on the benchmark front from us this year, and just last week we launched a big new launch of our core foundation model Symphony, where we launched the capabilities within what's called medical coding. So obviously everyone knows that coding, like programming, is classically something we talk a lot about for large language models, but in healthcare we have our own version of what coding is, and coding is the need to take all healthcare's very unstructured data and make it structured.
Yeah.
And the reason that's important is because we all come to our doctors, we've all tried it, and they ask, how are you doing? And then you start explaining all your symptoms. And although we might have the same actual objective disease or symptoms, we will describe them differently. What will happen is differently, where we're at is differently, the cofactors are differently. And that means healthcare is a very messy space. So
Yeah.
to make sure you leave the doctor with the prescriptions, the billing, the referrals, all that, they code you. And code is a number. There's more than 70,000 of them in the major
Yeah.
bench of them. And forever, people have been trying to get computers to be better at predicting patients' codes. We just launched Symphony for medical coding, and we're beating Anthropic, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, and Oracle, who are the leading figures in the space.
That's incredible. Talk a bit about that. So, just for everyone to fully understand Corti, who is using you? How, what is it allowing people to do? And when will we, as a patient, feel the outcome of Corti having been used in the backend?
Um, so Cordy's customers are builders. Builders in healthcare and life science live in many, many places, but there are sort of two big bulks, which are all of the great systems that's been serving us for some years, some decades, who need AI built into their platform. Some are all the digital health startups that really are accelerating, and some are the providers and payers and life science companies themselves who want to build. So why do they come to us? They come to us usually because they are trying to build something in-house,
Yeah.
and they're on that journey, but having a tough time stitching together stuff, prompt engineering, stacking up prompts, and guardrailing and orchestrating and building harnesses. And we abstract a lot of that away due to our research and models.
Yeah. It- Everyone is kind of saying that the place where we can imagine that AI will have one of the biggest impacts is in healthcare. But at the same time, we're also all saying it's probably the hardest system to break through in. Can you talk a bit about that and how you're navigating it and how you're seeing, especially your clients navigate it?
Yeah, it's a real conundrum because on one side, healthcare is adopting AI faster than most other enterprise industries. So there is a real need and there's a real pickup.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that really has changed the last 3 or 4 years is that we see much more blossoming of the bottom of SaaS movements we've seen. So clinicians, doctors, nurses, and beyond just finding great tools and adopting them themselves. And a lot of these are obviously AI tools. So healthcare is really adopting. So the whole thing, like it's hard to crack. I think that's really changing
Yeah.
because the innovation cycles of hospitals are changing. And
Yeah.
first, people, when I say that, people are like, what is he talking about? They like never adopt innovation. And that's the first mistake. Hospitals have more technology than technology companies. So if you
Yeah.
go into any room in a hospital, there's more devices, there's more tech, there's more models than anywhere in a tech company like mine. And that's because like everything is more or less tech enabled. They just look very differently. So a stethoscope today is usually tech enabled. There's a lot of machines from radiology to dictation. So healthcare adopts a ton of technology. They just have to know that when we lie on the counter as a patient, we don't have to ask, oh, by the way, is it like ISO standard regulated, or is it like some big thing you vibe coded, right? Nobody wants vibe coded stuff in healthcare yet.
Yeah, and
So
the data that's amassed
yeah,
in the healthcare system is absolutely crazy. My wife has just been hospitalized, unfortunately, for 12 days. She's
oh,
back home, she's safe, everything's great, but 140 pages in her journal. We thought that when were about to check it out, we had imagined 6 pages, 8 pages, and then we
exactly
opened
right.
it with 140. It's incredible what's being amassed in that ecosystem. Let me then ask you another question, which goes to this adoption inside the hospitals being very rampant, and it's going to be a bit of a difficult question, maybe, and maybe one that's politically charged. But I've often thought, are the private sector hospitals and more privately dominated healthcare industries, are they moving faster than, say, a Danish one? And I've really not known who's moving fastest. Is it that system or the Danish system? I'm super curious to hear your answer.
Hey, we could have an entire podcast on the current state of the Danish healthcare system, which historically has been known as one of the best, which is definitely might not be anymore. Um, so generally, what we're seeing is obviously not everything, but we see quite a bit, and we're growing a double-digit percent a week, and we have thousands of people building on platform now. So we see quite a bit, and we see from 11 countries. And generally, what we see is that private providers move faster. They generally also tend to move faster in markets where they are in a payer provider squeeze. We can talk for lengths about the hard battle between payers and providers in the US. That motivates people to adopt technologies like this faster. So US skews faster, private US skews really, really fast.
Yeah, yeah, that was also what I feared, being a Dane that does not have a very good private sector for healthcare. Okay, now let me ask you, because all the big AI labs are all pushing into healthcare, and as you just said in the beginning here, you've just shown that your Symphony outperforms every one of them with more than 25% on medical coding. I just want to understand, why is it that general purpose models do not solve this problem, and do you think that they're making a huge mistake? They're never going to be able to. Vertical AI has to be the solution for healthcare.
I think they're going to have a great time in healthcare. Healthcare is a really, really big $1 trillion market, and there's room for all of us at once. Our basic thesis is very much that um, everyone is talking about healthcare as an admin problem. Like one third of the time in US healthcare is spent on paperwork, and paperwork seems like it's like easy to call the enemy. But the reason we have paperwork is because the system is built on messy data. It's unstructured, messy data, and there's a lot of it is non-objective. So to organize around a system that is this critical with this much subjectiveness, this much entropy, you have to have all this paperwork. So the ultimate guess is obviously, will they be helpful in some of these simpler admin workflows? Most definitely, most definitely.
Yeah.
Where we want to play is that I firmly believe that we have to replace a lot of the work done by humans with work done by agents, AI agents. And to do that, you need a completely different approach to how you govern them, control them, when you can't generate anymore, when you can't be probabilistic, when you have to be deterministic. There's tons of decisions that's not about horsepower or scaling laws or context windows. It's about how you orchestrate and building those agents that will run large parts of healthcare. I think we will do, or companies like us will do, and then the large AI labs will still have a blast elsewhere.
Yeah. Now let me ask you a Europe question. You're founded in Copenhagen, but you operate across US, UK, and the rest of Europe. You have your tech here in Copenhagen, and then you've got a team as well in New York. I want to understand how you're thinking about building a global healthcare AI company from Europe, and what advantages that gives you, and maybe also where there are disadvantages.
Yeah, so sort of our journey has been anchored around the basic idea that we thought that AI would occupy more headspace, both in front of patient and between providers, so doing real tasks and work. We also believe that software would at some point commoditize more and more would be building great software. We obviously hadn't foreseen vibe coding and and the generative programming would be this great, this fast. But the general thesis, it's the same. We should just see way more great software, and it's becoming cheaper and cheaper. So ultimately, everyone can build today in healthcare. The question where it gets hard is how do you do regulated AI that is almost insurable? If you can get to that level of quality in your models, then you unlock the next cascade of work to be done by AI, which is much more execution based, task based, and maybe agent to agent based. And here you have a real advantage, I believe. So if one of you guys actually find this interesting, you can go to corti.ai and check out our compliance page or our trust page. You see some of the ISO standards and CE marks and deep German data regulations we go deep into like nobody else really does at the sort of model lab layer. And that's ultimately because that's our goal. We don't need to be great at YouTube transcriptions, right? We just have to be really, really great at getting governed AI into production. So that's a real advantage in Europe because ultimately the US providers who are best are also worried about hallucinations and trust issues. So they actually like some of the stuff that's happening in Europe, not all of it, but some of it. So coming from like the belly of the beast in the Nordics where compliance is sort of default has helped us a ton. And then I think the quality of the talent is crazy. Like Denmark historically has been one of the best breeding grounds for great engineers, and it still is. We have fantastic researchers as well. Danish Technical University ranks top in Europe. So we have amazing talent as well. And I think people have a much more longitudinal approach to career than we've seen a lot of the tech hubs in the US. It's not like people are jumping around every 2 years. They want to make a dent and they know like hard problems take time to solve. So we have a really committed core we love to work with. And I think those things combined is important for our kind of work.
Yeah. Let me ask you a bit about building in Europe and the hybrid organization, whether you can have one that do everyone need to be on site in Denmark, or are you able to distribute across the many different areas of excellence that we have? Because it's incredible what's going on both in Oxford and in Copenhagen and in Munich. Are you able to leverage that, or do you feel that for what you're doing, you need to pull everyone back to Denmark?
I think I heard a smart guy say that the moment you have more than 100 people, you're remote anyway, because like if people are on the floor and you don't run into each other, you're technically not working together, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's just like a very core foundational truth about scaling a company, right? The moment you're more than 100 people, you don't see everybody every day. So I think the sort of the romantic vision of all people stewing together in like a whiteboard room and like hashing out the great problems of the universe is, I think it's a very romantic idea of what work really is. So we're in Copenhagen, we're in New York, we're in London. We also have a couple of satellites beyond that, and we're opening a new office in Europe quite soon. We're very excited about. So we believe in hybrid because we believe in the best talent, but we fly them around quite a bit, and we spend a lot of time making sure that people who are working together have travel budgets and they spend real time under the same hood. But ultimately, like in this day and age, we're like if you've been here for years, you can earn that right to work wherever you want to work.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Now, let me ask you one final question before we close and just say, see you at the summit. What's the bigger vision for Corti beyond medical coding? Where will Symphony go from here?
Yeah, so the goal is covering billions of patients through our many customers, and I think we're on a great path there. More than 100 million today is served by Corti. And what we want to do with Symphony is just be the model alternative to big AI labs at par when we go into clinical work in healthcare, especially government clinical work. And we're scaling that now to a lot of different countries we're going live with this year, and also in completely different continents. And we're expanding the offering to make it easier and easier for people who have a non-technical background to build clinical grade AI. So a lot of stuff coming.
That's so amazing. For those that are a little more technical, you can definitely go to corti.ai to both see a live demo of everything we're talking about here, but also read the technical papers behind Symphony. If you're building in healthcare or life sciences or investing in this space, I would definitely say Corti is a company that's worth watching closely. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today. And thank you, Andreas, for joining me.
Thanks, sir.